There's a woman sitting in a parked car outside her office at 8:51 in the morning. The engine is off. Her coffee is getting cold. She's been here for 11 minutes. She's not late. She's not early. She's trying to remember which version of herself she is supposed to be when she walks through that door. She is good at her job. Her manager said so last week, in front of the whole team. Used the word exceptional. And the strange thing, the thing she has not told anyone, is that the compliment made her feel worse. Not embarrassed, not humble. Something closer to afraid. As though the gap between what they see and what she knows had just been measured out loud, and now someone might notice the distance. She has a name for this. Everyone does. Impostor syndrome. She has read the articles, taken the online quiz, nodded at the TED Talk. She knows she's supposed to reframe her thoughts, keep a list of accomplishments, remind herself that she belongs. She has done all of this. None of it has changed the feeling. The feeling is not that she is failing. The feeling is that the person succeeding is not her. This is where most explanations stop. They treat the feeling as a malfunction, a cognitive distortion, a glitch in otherwise healthy self-perception that can be corrected with the right intervention. But what if the feeling is not a glitch? What if it is accurate? Not in the way she fears, not that she is secretly incompetent, but in a way that is harder to sit with. That the version of herself performing competence in that office is, in fact, not entirely her. That the feeling of being fake is not a syndrome. It is a signal. The car is still parked. The coffee is cold now. The British psychoanalyst Donald Winnicott spent decades working with people who functioned well by every external measure and felt hollow doing it. He did not call what they experienced imposter syndrome. He called it something more precise, a false self. Not a lie exactly, not a deliberate deception. A structure built in childhood to meet the expectations of the environment, layered so carefully over the original self that by adulthood, even the person wearing it can't always tell the difference. The false self is not pathological in the way a clinician might expect. It works. It gets promoted. It holds relationships together. It knows what to say in meetings and how to laugh at the right moment and when to seem vulnerable without actually being so. The problem is not that it fails. The problem is that it succeeds. And the more it succeeds, the more the real self, the one underneath, the one that never learned how to perform, recedes. Not destroyed, not gone, just unfed, growing thinner in the dark. Winnicott understood that children do not build false selves because they are weak. They build them because they are perceptive. A child who learns early that certain feelings are unwelcome, that anger is dangerous, that sadness makes a parent uncomfortable, that enthusiasm is met with correction, will begin constructing a version of themselves that fits. Not because they want to, because they have to. The false self is a survival mechanism. It is the personality equivalent of a load-bearing wall. Remove it suddenly, and the whole structure collapses. But live inside it long enough, and the rooms start to feel like they belong to someone else. The woman in the car was that kind of child. She learned early which version of herself was welcome and which was not. She became fluent in the language of accommodation before she had words for what she was suppressing. By the time she reached adulthood, the performance was so seamless that she had forgotten it was a performance. What she's been calling imposter syndrome is not a lack of confidence. It is the faint signal of a self she abandoned decades ago, tapping on the wall from inside the structure she built to replace it. The sociologist Goffman proposed that all social life is performance, that every interaction involves a front stage and a backstage, and that the self we present to others is always, to some degree, managed. He was not being cynical. He was describing a mechanism so ordinary that most people never notice it. The front stage is the office, the dinner party, the phone call with a parent. The backstage is the car at 8:51 in the morning with the engine off. What Goffman did not account for, or at least did not emphasize, is what happens when the backstage disappears. When the performance becomes so total, so continuous, that there is no longer a place where a person can stop acting and simply be. This is not unusual. It is, for many people, the defining condition of adult life. The performance does not feel like a performance because there is nothing to contrast it against. The backstage has been converted. It is now just another stage. The woman in the car does not know this. She thinks her problem is confidence. She thinks if she could just believe in herself a little more, the feeling would stop. Every self-help book she has read has told her this. Every motivational speaker, every well-meaning friend. Believe in yourself, own your achievements, step into your power. And she has tried. She has tried so hard to believe in the person she performs that she has lost contact with the person she is. The advice is not wrong because it is bad advice. It is wrong because it is addressed to the wrong person. It is telling the false self to believe in itself. And the false self already does. That is the whole point of it. R.D. Laing, the Scottish psychiatrist, described a state he called ontological insecurity, a feeling not of anxiety about a specific thing, but of uncertainty about whether the self itself is real. People experiencing ontological insecurity do not fear failure. They fear exposure, not of incompetence, but of emptiness. The terror is not that someone will find out they cannot do the job. The terror is that someone will look closely enough to see that the person doing the job is a construction. And behind the construction, there is a gap where a self should be, but is not, or at least cannot be reached. This is what the woman in the car feels, though she would not describe it this way. She would say she feels like a fraud. The word fraud implies that there is a real version being concealed and a fake version being displayed. But the vertigo she experiences every morning is worse than that. It is not that she is hiding something. It is that she is not sure what she would find if she stopped hiding. The mask has been on so long that the face underneath has become unfamiliar. There is a particular cruelty in a culture that diagnoses this as a confidence problem. That takes the signal, the faint tapping from behind the wall, and reframes it as a deficiency. Fix your thinking, change your self-talk, affirm your way past it. This is the language of a world that has no use for the question the feeling is actually asking, which is not, am I good enough, but am I even here? Heidegger used the term das Man to describe the way human beings lose themselves in the crowd, not through coercion, through comfort. The they-self, he called it. The version of a person that thinks what one thinks, does what one does, values what one values. Not because those thoughts and values have been chosen, but because choosing is harder than absorbing. The they-self is not a villain, it is a default. It is what happens when a person stops asking who they are and starts answering with what they do. The woman in the car has a title, a salary, a mortgage, a 5-year plan that her friends describe as impressive. She has built a life that looks, from the outside, like a life someone would want. And the feeling she cannot shake, the one she's been calling imposter syndrome, is the suspicion that she built it for someone else, not for a specific person, for the they-self, for the version of her that knew what was expected and delivered it so efficiently that nobody, including her, noticed that the person doing the delivering had gone somewhere else. She will go inside eventually, she always does. She will smile at the receptionist, open her laptop, join the 9:30 call. She will be competent and composed and precisely the person everyone expects. And somewhere beneath all of it, so faintly that she will not hear it over the sound of her own performance, something will continue to tap. The word impostor comes from the Latin imponere, to place upon, to impose. But the imposition is not the fake self placed upon the world. The imposition is the world placed upon the self. Every expectation absorbed without question. Every accommodation made before the need was even conscious. Every version of a person constructed to meet a demand that was never spoken aloud, but was understood completely. The feeling of being a fake is not a syndrome to be cured. It is the cost of a self that was built to specification rather than grown from the inside. And the reason it doesn't respond to affirmation, to lists of accomplishments, to any amount of being told that the feeling is just in your head, is that the feeling is not in the head. It is in the architecture, in the walls, in the rooms, in the load-bearing structures that hold the whole thing up. The tapping is coming from inside the building, and the building is the self. 8:52. She opens the door.
The coffee is cold. She leaves it in the cup holder.